So Mo, thanks so much for joining me here at BHBA's Member Lounge.
Happy to be here. I've been here a million times, as you know, and I seem to walk by this door every single time and didn't even know it was so nice in here.
You know, as a total member, you know, you have access to this, you know, great lounge, and I took advantage of it. I'm glad that you and I are doing that together now.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here today.
So a couple of questions I wanted to follow up with. Well, first of all, we like to ask all of our interview subjects, what's a word that you most commonly or very often hear other people describe you as?
Well, Suzanne, I can give you a few. Let's say intelligent, driven, and sometimes a little arrogant.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, a little bit. I can be a little bit of a know-it-all from time to time.
Can't we all?
Yeah, and, you know, and some people feel a certain way about the way that I say things. I feel that it's more confidence, but people take it as arrogance from time to time.
Well, one of the things I find very common with attorneys would be that because in law school we're taught to only speak when we know what we're talking about. You know, you can speak with confidence because you wouldn't open your mouth, but for the fact that you know what you're talking about.
Yes, and I have a situation or a recent situation with a couple of family members on social media, some specifically due to the whole anti-vax movement. And from time to time, I feel compelled to bring facts to an argument, and that can ruffle some feathers from time to time.
Right. Well, because there aren't alternative facts. Facts are facts.
Yes.
Truth is truth. And sometimes...
If you're a lawyer.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've had those experiences too. Well, okay. What would be a word you'd really want someone to use to describe you?
I would say confident rather than arrogant.
Right.
And so I've learned over the last few years that it's important for people to know who they are and to be a little bit more self-actualized.
Yeah.
And so if you know you have a particular characteristic because others are saying it, you can turn it on and off depending on the situation. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, sometimes I can use my perceived arrogance in a way that's positive for me.
Right.
And then other times, depending on who I'm sitting across from, I may want to turn it off a little bit and be more of a listener instead of a talker. Right.
It's, you know, we've discussed in some of our other interviews, it's so important to, you know, be an active listener about, you know, that fundamentally everybody really wants to know that they're being heard. And so it's that moment when you say, yeah, I could probably add something to this conversation, but what's really going to benefit the group or the situation better for me to give this, you know, factual information or to listen and let this person really be heard and for me to really get that information from them.
Yes, and I guess sometimes the difference between what people perceive as arrogant versus confidence is whether or not your advice is solicited or unsolicited.
Oh, that's a good point.
So from time to time, if I see a conversation now on social media, unless it's completely out there, especially if it's from a family member, where sometimes not saying something may be
the kindest thing you can do.
Exactly. And then maybe people will perceive me more as confident rather than arrogant. If I masked a particular subject.
Exactly. You know, I as I follow you on your platforms, like I will notice, I'm like, I know your opinion on that, but you're just mum's the word.
Yeah, typically. And then sometimes maybe you should just, you know, be quiet. And I have a hard time doing that, and so that's why people perceive me to be arrogant from time to time. But, you know, I'm working on it personally.
Yeah, just like pick your battles.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Here's something it's one of my favorite questions to ask the different subjects that we have in this program.
Shoot.
Tell me something about you that would surprise and delight our viewers, something that they may not know.
I used to be a hip-hop dance teacher.
Nice.
I started dancing in, was it middle school? No, it was more early high school. I used to get paid around $25 to go dance at parties.
Really nice.
Los Angeles. So as a kid, knowing that I could make money going to parties and dancing, I became a really adept hip-hop dancer. At LMU, I joined a hip-hop dance club and started running it my junior and senior year.
Of course you started running it.
And eventually got a job teaching kids hip-hop routines for, what was it, a year or two while I was in law school? And so it hasn't been something that I've really been able to do a lot lately, but I could cut a rug.
That's nice.
Yes.
That's nice. Not to mention, it's great to know that, you know, during law school, you could kind of take a break from it all. I mean, law school, everybody, you know, any lawyer can tell you that that's just such stress and pressure, and just to have that kind of a release and that kind of positive, you know.
Yes, and it was a release. I probably should get back to it, to be honest.
Especially because you're going to be a dad, right?
Yes, but the whole time issue, it's just so hard to do something else or drive 30, 40 minutes and take that time out of your day.
Right.
And for me, dance and music is something I never really wanted to turn into a career. Because if I turned it into a career or something that I had to do, I probably would enjoy it less.
Right.
So that's something surprising about me that
it's also delightful.
If you didn't know me in high school or college, that would probably astound you.
We know each other pretty well, and one thing is I've learned about you is that nothing, you know, never be surprised. Like never be surprised that you have some experience or some passion project or hobby. And this is something I really didn't know about you, so you even surprised and delighted me. So very good.
Hey guys, welcome to my office. This is the new Reed and Garcia Law office.
It looks great.
Thank you. Even though there's a couple of offices and cubicle type spaces, it didn't feel like we were too separated from one another because you can still see into the office.
You and your employees are a team. You're connected still.
Creates a synergy. Everyone sees everyone. Yeah. And frankly, you can cooperate much better that way.
Yeah. Speaking of cooperate, I mean, like, look at the collaborative leaders here of civil rights. I mean, the photos are amazing.
Yeah, as you can see, that's another one of our themes is Black and Latino civil rights leaders and labor movement leaders, given our practice areas. Most of our clients are working class, blue collar individuals that have injuries on the job or injuries in any other type of area, whether it's a car accident or a dangerous condition on a property. So that's the theme we were going for. We wanted to put people on the wall who would represent our client base and represent my working class roots as well as my partner's working class roots as well.
What's your idea of success?
My idea of success is personal happiness, first and foremost. When I die or on my deathbed, I want my kids and my wife to be able to say that I was there.
Yeah. I
was the type of father that went to the recitals, that went to the baseball games, that went to the soccer games. That's the most important thing for me. And while I do want to make a lot of money, I'm more so interested in finding that balance between business success and personal and family success. So that's my idea of success.
Okay, so here you are now. You're in this great office. You have your own firm. What qualities or characters do you most value in a colleague or an employee?
I'll take the first question first. What do I most value in a colleague? I would have to say it would be the ability to handle your workload. And I guess I'm not emotional and very pragmatic as it relates to what I value in a colleague. Personality differences and characteristics don't matter too much to me. But can you handle your workload so that I don't have to stop something that I'm doing to handle what you should be able to handle? Employees are a little bit different. And by colleague, just to explain, someone that's, let's say, an attorney, because that's the profession that we're And
Right.
so an attorney you work with versus a legal assistant or a paralegal. And an employee, number one, I want somebody who shows up on time, who I can depend on being there when they're supposed to be there. And then number two, the most important quality in an employee is someone who learns from their mistakes. I'm not one of those bosses or supervisors who doesn't expect you to make mistakes.
Right.
You're human.
Right.
I can understand that. But I don't want you to make the same mistakes twice. You should be learning from the mistakes you've made in the past. And if you don't, then you're not going to be a valuable employee.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder when an employee will make a mistake more than once and have a reason why. And I always say, you know, I'm not so concerned about the reason why. Let's just make this the last time this happens.
Yes.
Okay, what about friends? What do you value most in a friend?
I value loyalty the most in friends. And to be honest, some of my friends I feel like I can count on more than some of my family.
Oh, yeah.
And I value what my friends are doing and their ambition, because I'm a big proponent and that phrase that we hear, you are who your friends are. So if your friends are not pushing you to become a better person, a better lawyer, a better father, then what's the purpose of having friends? So loyalty, someone that I can count on. And then number two, somebody that pushes me.
What about from the emotional side? What is your passion project? I know, you know, I look around and I see these photos and I think about the fact that you've always had this really, you know, we've known each other for a while, and you've always had this strong sense of community or community base inside of you. And I'd really like you to tell the viewers what your passion project is.
Well, my primary passion project, because I'm, as you would describe me, extremely curious.
Yeah.
So one
of the things I like most about you.
The major thing that I've been working on recently, and it's actually been a project of mine for, let's say, the last year or so, but because of a new law that's came out, it's a police transparency law that recently was passed, and it's been effective January 1st. It's called Free the Truth, Inc. It's a nonprofit corporation that focuses on Freedom of Information Act requests, as well as the California version of a Freedom of Information Act request.
It's a tongue twister.
Known as the CPRA. Essentially, it's a transparency organization aimed at releasing information to the public regarding police shootings in Southern California. And given my background and my experience with police officers and my family's experience with police officers, I feel like the best way to cure the situation that we are currently in is by making things more transparent. So if the public has more information about why officers may discharge their weapon, what the investigations, at least the conclusions of the investigations are behind some of these police shootings, then maybe we can legislate better. We will have more information. Maybe police officers and members of the public will be less likely to engage in these altercations if they all know that it's going to be public one day.
Yeah.
As you know, this is going to be shown on Beverly Hills Bar Association's television channel on YouTube. And the people who are going to be watching it are largely going to be Beverly Hills Bar Association members. And I think one of the first things they'll be curious about is, first of all, how did you get involved in Beverly Hills Bar Association? And when you arrived at the association, who was the first person you met?
Well, after law school, I was working at an entertainment litigation firm. And because the BHBA has a lot of entertainment litigators and transactional attorneys, my old supervisor wanted me to become more involved, and I also thought it was a good idea to become more involved, to start networking with a lot of entertainment lawyers. So that's how I became involved. One of the first people I recall meeting at the Beverly Hills Bar Association was Suzanne Schwartz in connection with the social media CLE with Gideon Grunfeld, I believe, who was speaking about different ways to promote and brand your business or yourself.
What do you think drew her or you to her and vice versa? Why do you think you became fast friends? And to this day, she's my colleague who's also asking questions.
Well, as you know, Suzanne is really social. So it's hard for her to walk in a room and for you not to notice. So I think just initially I wanted to become more involved, and she was starting up the social networking committee at the time and wanted potential members to join the committee, and I was interested, and that's how our relationship and our friendship blossomed.
I think one thing a lot of people note when they first join the Beverly Hills Bar Association is that when they come in, the people they meet are very warm and social, and they immediately feel like they're at home. And it sounds like you found the same thing with Suzanne. So it's nice that you still remember that and that you're still friends to this day.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about the Beverly Hills Bar Association is like the communal feeling that you get from a lot of the attorneys. And it's not one of those bar associations where you feel like an outsider. Because I've been to many bar events, numerous legal conferences, and they all have a different feel. And the BHBA had a very family-like feel where you always feel like you're a part of whatever is going on. And if you wanted to join a committee or some other portion of the BHBA, it's really accessible. And I feel that's what drew me towards the Bar Association.
If you were to pick the most interesting person you'd like to meet, living or dead, who's ever lived or who currently lives, if you had a chance of meeting that person, who would that be?
Currently living, because I didn't really think about someone who has passed that I would like to meet. As it relates to someone who is currently living, that would be former President Barack Obama. And what's more surprising for some individuals is Fareed Zakaria.
All right. Let's unravel that. Let's start with Barack Obama. Why?
Barack Obama was elected president while I was in law school. And as a black attorney, seeing a black man become president who was very similar to me in a sense where he went to law school and didn't really have that type of family background as an attorney, seeing someone achieve what he achieved while I was going through the process of law school was very critical for my psyche in terms of possibilities. I grew up in a family where it was said many times that a black man could never become president of the United States.
Sure.
So seeing my father, who told me things like that, come to terms with a black man becoming president of the United States opened up an entire new world for me in what I believed was possible and what I was capable of. So me starting a law firm after seeing a black man become president of the United States became less daunting. It became more possible. It became like something that I could reach out and touch and grab because I just saw someone that looked like me become the most powerful person in the world twice, if that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense. It's not just once, but he was, after serving for 4 years, he was reelected, and that's huge.
Yes, and so seeing that and it was the first time that I saw like change manifested in this country to a certain extent. And now we have Donald Trump as president, so I've become a little bit more cynical. But seeing Barack Obama elected and then seeing how he dealt with all of the obstacles and all of the people saying racist things about him and things that I think if he were doing what Donald Trump is doing now, he would have been excoriated. But Barack Obama and his family were like the pinnacle of what I would like my family to be one day. And seeing it in action rather than just hearing about it or someone saying that this is what you should be or what you could be, but actually seeing it live in the flesh, for me, that was just amazing. And so I forever owe Barack Obama a debt of gratitude for showing me what I could become. And so that if I have a son one day, I can point to this past president and history books and on the internet or wherever and tell him and or my daughter that this is what you can become. And it's not just me saying it, but someone has already walked that path.
You like to travel a lot.
I do.
Any particular regions that really attract you when you travel?
Two of my favorite places that we've visited recently, and by recently over the last 2 or 3 years, when I proposed to my wife, I proposed in Florence, Italy, but we did a day trip to Rome, and we did a tour of the Vatican. And I'm not Catholic. I did go to Catholic schools, but I'm not Catholic. But the Vatican is so inspiring and so grandiose and has so much history, and the art is amazing.
Sure.
And just seeing the walls outside of the city that shows you potentially how they were invaded in the past, and there's just so much history lingering around everywhere that's my ideal of like of a great vacation.
What is it that excites you about being a lawyer?
What excites me about being an attorney is that I have more control over my destiny to a certain extent, and I'm able to affect change in the world if I feel that there has been an injustice that has occurred.
I've given you all these questions, and Uzzi gave you some questions. And what's a question that you would ask to the subjects of these interviews, and why would you ask it?
I would ask, do you intend to practice law forever, or at least until
That's a good question.
You can't anymore? I would ask that because I know that we're in this extremely stressful profession. There's some downtime, but we're always, lurching from emergency to emergency. And that can take a toll on a person from mentally, physically. And I don't know if I want to practice law full time forever.
Right.
I'll keep my license. I might take a case here and there in 20, 30 years, but I don't know if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or if I may become interested in running my nonprofit full time. Right. Or photography, or becoming a full-time basketball coach, or something that interests me on I guess a more creative level than law. I enjoy law, but I don't know if it feeds everything within me that I need, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. I mean, they say there's so many studies that say that most people, modernly, will have 3 careers in their life.
I didn't know that.
Yep. They say 3 careers, 3 to 5 actually, but they will change to something else. And they also say that oftentimes they find their new career from an unlikely part of their former career. And so, the fact that, you have so many interesting creative pursuits. And I know that in law school, you know, I've always said, it's the best thing I ever did, no matter if I never practiced law, ever, not for a single day. It was the greatest training just to allow me to think about the world differently. And you have all these creative pursuits that now with that education and experience, what you could do with it, I mean...
it's endless.
Exactly.
And, you know, that was one of the reasons I went to law school as well. I just feel like it teaches you how things work.
Yes. Being able to find out how things work also allows you to pick apart what you need from them. What's the right question to ask them so that you can get he's like, help me, help you, right?
Yes, and that could be somewhat frustrating from clients. Specifically, when you first meet a client and you're trying to analyze their issue, it's more of about an emotional outlet for them.
Right.
And for you, it's
right.
more of an exercise because you do this all the time and you know what 3 facts or 4 facts are really important.
Yeah.
And yet they want to tell you their life story. So sometimes
and how you manage that.
You become a counselor
absolutely.
and a counselor.
Absolutely. I mean, as a mediator, without fail, 90% of the time, I'll have to remind the client, I know the situation and what we're doing right here, it feels like therapy. And this sounds like something that would be, you know, a very good idea for you to discuss with a therapist. That's not what we're doing here. And, you know, and with the, you know, and I feel for every single person because it's clearly, you know, very important to them. And then how do you navigate in a very productive and, you know, sympathetic way? Like, okay, and then turn it around back to getting the information you need in order to serve them best. And it's that client-side matter, right? You and I could talk all day because now we're getting into my wheelhouse, but I'm not the subject of this interview. And you've been a delightful subject.
Well, thank you.
So thank you so much for participating and, you know, opening up your office and in your whole world to us and for sharing this time with us.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to highlight my office, my firm, Reed & Garcia, and, you know, what we can do for the community. And what the Bar Association can do for the community.
2 peas in a pod.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Suzanne.